guys, so what I want to do today is I want to talk about pumpkins, how to grow a pumpkin, give you a roundabout idea. Okay, I know that I was going to do a video on hybrids, heirlooms, and open pollination. We're going to save that for a different day. Let's talk about pumpkins. So you see here, we got, this is a pumpkin, here's a pumpkin. Look how big that leaf is, right? That's inside the house. Outside I get 3 times this size. It's huge. They're looking good. All right, everything's looking decent for what they are. I need to get them out in the greenhouse and get them trying to grow out there. But what makes a giant pumpkin, right? I mean, everybody wants to know, well, what did you feed that thing, right? Everybody wants to know, what did you feed it? First thing out of their mouth is, what did you feed it? It's really not about what I fed it as much as what I have to begin with, right? So, give you a little bit of backstory. In 2020, I bought Atlantic Giant seeds from like Amazon or something. And they came in a 2-pack. There was 10 seeds in each pack. I gave 1 pack to my daddy. I took a pack. We planted them both. I was lucky to grow a 50-pounder. He grew like a 70-pound one, right? Thing is, they were supposed to be Atlantic Giants. And while those were big pumpkins, they were not big, as in, I'm thinking I'm going to have a 1,000-pound pumpkin or at least a 100-pound pumpkin, right? Got nowhere near that. Didn't have the growth rate. Nothing was right, okay? So, on 2020, I count that as my research and development year, okay? So, all of 2020, the only thing I done was I researched and developed. And all right, here's what I done. I researched how to grow the pumpkins. I watched every video I could find on YouTube on how to grow giant pumpkins. I watched Keeping It a Secret, Home and Gardening with Mark Clements. I watched Danny Mason. I watched Growing Giants. I watched Chad New. I watched some of the videos of Growing Giants with Scott. I watched Doc Rodabaugh. There was a couple other videos, some of them quite long, like 1 or 2 hour long videos about how to do it, what you need to give them, etc., etc. And I took that knowledge that I had in 2020 and I applied it to my patch in 2020. Just didn't have the genetics, right? So even though I was applying all this knowledge to my patch and I wasn't getting any results, and I was really upset that I couldn't get a pumpkin to grow the way I thought it was going to. Now, they grew really quick, but they also quit growing very quickly as well, right? So, it was a very odd year in 2020, and it was just, trying to learn, wrap my head around it, but that's where the research and development come in, because I developed a set of skills that I used in 2021 that carried me to a 1,016-pound pumpkin in my first year. That's not really heard of a whole lot, right? Very few people in their first year grow a 1,016-pound pumpkin, okay? Even fewer people grow 2,000-pound pumpkins, and it's happened in the first year for people. 2, I didn't grow just 1. I grew 11 giant pumpkins, ranging from 300 pounds to 1,016. Now, I grew a 1,016, a 908, which was 915 here at the house, 1016, which was 1025 here at the house, and a 950 that was technically even bigger. It was probably 1,068 pounds, somewhere around in there, based off of my calculations, right? It measured 848 on the OTT, which is over the top. That's a measuring we use to get our calculation on the weight without putting it on a scale. But when I got it and weighed it and everything, after everything was said and done, which I lost a lot of weight for different various reasons, but just know that when I weighed it, I had to cut it into pieces to weigh on a scale and weigh it at 950 here at the house. Now, then it also gave me a whole set of skills to grow a world record butternut squash, right? So I took all the skills that I learned in 2020 and all the research that I had done, developed it into a set of skills, used those set of skills in 2021. Was I a master at it? No, I was still learning now. But the one thing that helped me in 2021 was the knowledge and the research and the development that I had in 2020 helped me in 2021. The second best thing that helped me was the seed. The genetics of the seed is what really helped me, okay? I had good genetics. I had proven seeds from people who was growing 1,000+ pound pumpkins, and I took those same seeds and I grew 900,000 pound pumpkins, right? So you got to get the genetics right. If there's one thing that I can tell you about this, it is make sure you've got the right genetics for your growing. If you want to grow a 1,000 pound pumpkin, you have to verify the seeds you get came from a 1,000 pound pumpkin or better, right? Or if it didn't come from a 1,000 pound pumpkin, that in that genealogy within the the grandparents, the parents and the grandparents of the seed that you're getting, those were 1,000+ pound pumpkins, right? So like my 581 Cook. The 581 is small in comparison to these giant pumpkins, right? But the parent to it was a 2261 Schmidt and a 1673.5 Bartimus. So it's right there. I have 1,000+, 2,000 pound plus genetics in that seed, all right? So once you get that established and you have your foundation of, okay, this is the seed, this is what I'm going to grow, the next thing you want to do is soil tests, okay? And I know a lot of people, well, soil test, what? Yes, you can soil test. Now you can send your soil tests off to your local colleges. Some of them will do them for free. You can send your soil samples off to a lab. I did not do a soil sample last year. I tilled and planted. Had I done a soil test last year, I would have been even better at growing, right? That tells me what I need to add into my soil and when and everything. It just helps me help the plants because I don't know what the soil's lacking or too high in, right? So I can be giving it stuff that it necessarily don't need, and that stuff be locking other stuff up. If there's too much of something in the soil, it will lock up something else. So say there's too much nitrogen, right? Well, that too much nitrogen could lock up, your calcium or something of that nature, okay? Which pumpkins need a lot of calcium. If they're not getting a lot of calcium, they're not going to get big, okay? So you got to watch there's so much into this. You got your cation exchange, or you're locking stuff up because you're putting too much of something else in. So much to go into it. But let's not talk about all of those just yet. We'll wait for the season to get here to start focusing more on that. But seeds, your seeds, okay, number one, seeds. Where did it come from? Who has it? And did it come from 1,000+ pound pumpkins, not store-bought, okay? 2, soil sample. Get that soil tested, see what's in it, see what needs to be in it, and amend that soil accordingly, okay? Make sure you do that to have a successful year. The third thing is your climate. I don't know your climate. You have to figure that out, and everybody has a microclimate. I could be having great weather right here, and then 2 miles up the road, where there's a great big mountain up there, and I jump from 2297 in elevation to 2,800 feet in elevation, okay? They could be having a little bit of a crappier year up there, right? So you got microclimates, and that stuff also affects the way your plants are growing. Now, you want to make sure that you have full sun, okay? So go out, if you ain't made your patch yet, go out and look and say, okay, now I know in the summertime, this is where the sun comes, okay? You want full sun, the most sun that you can get. Squeeze every amount of sun you can get out of the day on your plants. Here's the deal. Them plants, they soak up all that energy in the day. All that energy at night is then released into the plant. The plant sucks up all the nutrients and stuff and takes the energy of the photosynthesis of that day and turns everything into sugars and carbs and all kinds of good things and grows, right? They need that daylight. They need that time to convert everything and to grow, right? So squeeze every amount of daggone sunlight you can get. Now, with that being said, we do need, you say, well, if we need that, then why do we need nighttime? You do need nighttime because at nighttime, that's when your plants will grow. You'll go in at 9 o'clock at night, okay? And you'll have a pumpkin the size of a basketball. You'll come out at 7 o'clock the next morning and that thing, less than 12 hours, okay, will be the size of a beach ball. Okay, I kid you not. It is the most interesting, fascinating, exciting thing that's ever grown is a giant pumpkin. These things can grow in excess of 50 to 70 pounds in a night. Okay? Oh yeah, they are cooking. Okay? How do you think people get 2,500, 2,700 pound pumpkins? Well, they're getting gains of 70 plus pounds a night. Okay? So if you're getting 25 to 50 pounds of gain in your first year, you're doing good. Only way you're going to get that, seed, soil test. Okay? Now, once you've got that down, your seed and your soil test, all right, you know where you're going to put your patch. You got good sun. You've got all that good, all right? And the next thing you need to start thinking about is your water and your fertilizers, okay? Now, if you're using chlorinated water, if you're on city water, okay, and you're using that, my recommendation is fill up something like a trash can or a IBC totes, something of the sort, fill them up with water, let them purge the chlorine overnight, put you a bubbler or something in there, get that chlorine out of there. Okay, chlorine bad, don't want chlorine in my soil, don't want chlorine in my patch, don't want it on my pumpkins. All right, if you can't, I understand. All right, it just, some people ain't got the time, don't have the expense, don't have the luxury, whatever you want to say, can't do it. All right, I understand. If you can't do it, it's understandable, but maybe you don't need to go the route that we're going, okay, which is using mycorrhizas and things of that nature. But, I mean, you can try it. I'm not saying don't try it. I'm just saying maybe you don't need to go that route. Maybe you want to stay a more commercialized way and using, triple 20s, and stuff like that. Here, I don't use a lot of, I will use triple 20. I don't like to. And usually if I use something like triple 20, it's a foliar spray. It's water soluble. I spray it on the leaves, and that way I'm not getting it on my dirt. All right, it's on the leaves. I use it in a very, very rare occasion. The majority of the time what I use is Mycorrhizae, fish fertilizers, fish emulsion, whatever you want to call it. Now, in the beginning of the season, I will use some DAP, which is diammonium phosphate. I will use some mono potassium sulfate, I think is what it's called, or no, phosphate. I will use some of those things, but I try to make sure when I use them that I haven't just blasted everything with mycorrhizae, right? That I haven't. Mycorrhizae is this stuff right here, which is it's good stuff. It helps your roots. They live on your roots. It's a good fungi that lives on your roots and helps convert good, the sugars and things over for your plants to uptake things a little bit better and a little bit easier, right? But back to, that goes down another rabbit hole as well. So let's go back to the water and the fertilizer. So purge it if you can on your water of the chlorine. If you can't find, it's understandable. No harm, no foul kind of deal, right? I mean, there is reasonings for doing it and getting the chlorine out, but if you can't, it ain't going to kill your pumpkin plants. But it may slow how your pumpkin does, right? So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're feeding it at the rate that it needs. So you start out a little bit, and you give it a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. Now, here's a common question. I was horrible for asking, well, how much do I give it? How much do I give it? How much do I give it? Because I'm wanting to know, how much do I give this stinking pumpkin, right? I want somebody to say, you give it 2 tablespoons of that, 3 tablespoons of this, and 8 tablespoons of that, and go at for it, right? Well, they can't tell me that. Here's why. They don't know my soil. They don't know what's in my soil. They don't know what my soil test said. They don't know nothing about it. So what they do at their place might not work here. In fact, what they do at their place might kill my plant, or it might blow my pumpkin up, right? They don't want to tell you that. They don't want to blow your pumpkin up. It's not that they're trying to keep a secret from you. They just don't want to hurt you. They don't want to hurt your plant and kill it. They don't want to hurt your pumpkin and blow it up. So it's better for them to just say, I don't really want to, I don't know. You know, I just don't know how much you should give it. You know, here's the thing: play around with it. Take notes, okay? Make sure you take notes. Write everything down. You know, if you fertilize on Monday and you give it, 3 tablespoons of fish emulsion, 1 tablespoon of something else like 0025 or something, or humic and fulvic acid, something of that nature. Whatever it is, you write it down and you say, okay, well, I foliar fed it, and then I overhead watered the next morning or something of that nature. Whatever you're doing, write everything down. When you write everything down, you're helping yourself keep a log and a journal, and then you can go back to the following week and say, okay, well, I didn't get the desired results last week that I wanted, so I'm going to bump this up. I'm going to go 2 tablespoons. I'm going to bump it up 2 tablespoons and see what that does. If that works out, great. If it don't, I'll adjust it again. Okay? Just keep bumping it up, bumping up, until you start getting burns on your leaves, okay, or something of that nature. All right, and you'll see if you're getting too hot on your fertilizers and stuff. Because the plant will start showing. The plant will start saying, "Hey, man, you're too hot. You're starting to bother me. I'm starting to get a little upset stomach. My leaves are starting to burn. Things are bad, and you gotta knock it off, right?" So once you get those desired effects that you're looking for, then you just kind of level off your fertilizer. Make sure that you're watering. Keep it moist, not sopping wet, but moist, right? Use a finger. Put your finger down in the soil. Your soil is wet all the way up to your finger. You're pretty good, right? Because it's going to be, wet down deep, right? There's one guy, he takes like a mason jar or something, and he digs a hole by each plant, right? And he sticks that mason jar down there by the plant. Okay. Well, when he wants to look and see how his moisture level's looking, he just pulls the mason jar up by the plant and he says, "Okay, well, it looks good to me," and then he sticks the mason jar back down in the hole. That's one way you can do it to check your moisture. So just keep your moisture good. Check. Do your fertilizer in increments until you get the desired result. Water it. Good. There's several other things into this. Let me think here. What else is the next one? We got seed. We've got soil tests, we've got watering, we've got fertilizer, we've got picking of where you pick it. Oh, okay. Vine training. Vine training is very important, okay? Now, you'll get these things and you'll grow them like a Christmas tree, or you can grow them in a pitchfork, right? So a Christmas tree pattern is just what it sounds like. It is legitimately a Christmas tree pattern that you're growing. So let me see here. Let me see. Okay, yeah, here. We'll grow right here. This is where we'll do it, right here. All right, so this right here is what a Christmas tree pattern is. Here's your stump, right? There's the base of your plant. And as your plant grows, you're growing it this way, right? Here's your first secondary, your second secondary, your third, your fourth, your fifth, your sixth, your seventh, your eighth, your ninth, right? And this is what they look like, right? So they're just a little shorter because they're different times that they're coming out, right? And it looks like a Christmas tree all the way out here to your main tip, right? Doot, 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 right? That's the Christmas tree pattern right there, okay? Now, like I said, here's your stump right there, and this is the way it's growing. Now, and you keep it good and spaced. And then you'll get these things called tertiaries, right? And they'll come off of your secondaries. Don't let them grow. Don't let them grow. Now, you can on certain things, but not on a Christmas tree. Don't let the tertiaries grow. You want the main vine and your secondaries, okay? That's all you want. Then you come out here 10 foot and after, okay? I think you should shoot for about 12 to 15 foot, okay? 12 to 15 foot. Pollinate your pumpkin. All right, let these get however long you can let them get, and 15 foot would be good if you can get these out to 15 foot. All right, Now, there's the other thing called the Pitchfork Design, and that's what this is right here. So you get your main right there. All right, there's your stump, there's your main vine. All right, now here's what the pitchfork does. Pitchfork runs them back. Just like that. All right, runs them back into the plant like that. Okay, and so that is very interesting. You know, I actually used a version of this year. So what I did this year, this is how I done it. Here was my stump. That's a little sloppy there. All right, so here's my stump and everything right through there. Okay, and on this side, I had a Christmas tree, and it went all the way out here. I had 40-foot vines. I had some that were 40 foot long out here, right? It was crazy. Okay, now on this side, I brought them back. But what happened, it started getting crammed for space. See that? So, now you can do this and have some success with it, but you got to have a much bigger patch than I got. All right. Then there's the other there's the other one, other design. It's like a spider, right? So here's your stump again. There's your vine. You got this one coming back, 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 this one coming back. And then you say you set fruit right here, right? You set fruit right there. And this one goes forward, that one goes forward, this one goes forward, that one goes forward, so on and so forth, right? And then you just dead it. All right, it's like a spider. Now, every one of your pumpkins, okay, every one of your pumpkins, it's going to have a secondary on it, right? Let that secondary grow out. All right, and what I do is when I let it grow out of there, I try to curve it and put an S curve in it. You'll see all that. In fact, you can go and look at all my videos that I've already got up, and you'll see how I S curved them and kept them away from the pumpkin and stuff, right? But what you want to do is you want to get that pumpkin vine away. You want to get the main vine away. You want to get the secondary away, right? But that main vine and that secondary is going to be feeding that. Now, I had a pumpkin last year, didn't like how it was growing and everything. I cut it completely off of the main. I let its secondary grow out and had tertiaries growing on it. And that became, I cut it off of the main vine and I let its secondary become its main and its tertiaries become its secondaries. And I just finished growing it out, right? There's so many different ways to do this. And you'll hear people argue about, you know, Christmas trees their favorite, or pitchforks their favorite, or, you know, this or that, or, you know, whatever. Really no wrong way to grow as far as the thing, as far as your layout of the plant, right? You just want to make sure two things. You got great airflow through that plant. The more airflow you can have through that plant, the better, because it's keeping it dry. Moisture breeds disease and fungus and just all kinds of nasty things, right? If you can keep it dry, you can keep a healthy plant. You won't have, you know, sobbing stump, or what people call a foaming stump. You won't have weeping vines, which I ended up getting some weeping vines. You won't have problems with your leaf stems getting sick and dying, and then, you know, having to cut them off and then having a wound and stuff like that. And the bigger that it is, the more space you have in between, the better you are, the more airflow, right? You should be able to bend down and look through that whole plant, right? And you're not going to have very many weeds because the plant gets so big and the leaves get so big, it just drowns. There's no shade, there's no sun under there for weeds. Now, there will be some weeds, but you can get them out of there really easy, right? So do that. Get your weeds out. Make sure you're weeding good at the beginning. The bigger the plant gets, the less weed pressure you'll have. So the first month and a half or so, there's quite a bit of weeding. It's a mess. It's a lot of work and a lot of attention and stuff, right? But the longer it goes, the bigger the plant goes, the less weeds that are in there. So the better off you are. So just make sure you weed it If you do not weed it, you will not get a giant pumpkin. Just going to tell you plain and simple. You might be able to not weed it and get a 400 or 500 pound pumpkin, but you will not get a 9 to 1,000 pound pumpkin or bigger. Okay, you just won't get it. All right. But this is not for lazy people, and I'm just being blunt. You can't be lazy and grow giant pumpkins. You have to have a love of growing and a good work ethic in order to grow a giant pumpkin, because it's a lot of work. I mean, it's constant tension. And maybe not like work in the sense of back-breaking work, right? It's just constant tending to, like going out there and looking at the plant, looking under the leaves, making sure that there's no diseases, right? Making sure there's nothing going on with the plant, making sure there's no bugs, aphid eggs or any of that stuff, right? Reading the plant, wondering, saying, okay, well, maybe it needs some more calcium or magnesium or whatever, right? It's that kind of work. Now, there is weeding, of course, but here's the other part. Don't plant more than you can handle. If you can only handle one giant pumpkin, then only grow one giant pumpkin. If you can handle 11 of them, plant 11 of them. All right? But don't plant more than you can handle. Here's what will happen. You'll get frustrated. You'll get tired. Your wife will get frustrated. She'll get mad. You'll be in the doghouse. You'll be upset. She'll be upset. Nobody will be happy, and you'll never grow giant pumpkins again. All right? That is not what we are looking for. We're looking for people that are enthusiastic about it, love to grow, and they want to grow every single year. So only plant what you can grow. Okay? If you can only grow one and that's all you can take care of because you got such a busy schedule or whatever, okay? Or maybe you want to grow one for the fun of it, but you don't want to be tied down to it, right? Only grow one, because if you don't, you will lose interest, you'll be upset, and you'll not have any fun. 2, do not go on vacation when that pumpkin is on the vine. Your neighbor will not take care of that pumpkin like you take care of that pumpkin. He will not love it. He will not understand it. Let me tell you something. When that 950 of mine was out there in that patch and I felt that soft spot, my finger went through it this year, and I pulled it off with the side by side, and it gushed all the guts out from the underneath it. I was that close to shedding tears. That's how upset I was, because I can remember the day I pollinated that pumpkin. I remember every little scar that was on that pumpkin, how it got them scars, my mistakes, everything about that pumpkin I could remember, like, oh man, this, that, and the other. And you really do create a bond. I know it's going to sound silly, but only people that's grown giant pumpkins can literally understand what I'm telling you. You create a bond with that pumpkin that's so strong that when something happens to it, it saddens you. Like, it'll even sadden you to sell it, because even though you need the money to recoup at the end of the year to grow the next year, there's a tie to you to that pumpkin, and you're like, hey man, I don't really want to, I got to have the money because I got to grow next year, but I really don't want to let it go because I love the pumpkin, I love the shape, I love the color, I want the seeds, etc., etc. So that's the kind of attitude you're going to end up having if you love it. Okay, you're going to be sad. Your neighbor's not going to understand that. He's not going to understand that tie that you have with that pumpkin. He's not going to understand the time that you spend on it. He's not going to worry about spending all that time. If you leave and go on vacation, he's going to come over, he's going to spray a bunch of water on it. He might even drown the plant. He don't care. He says it's got to be a giant. It needs a lot of water. And he fills it up, right? He'll kill your plant. He's not going to take the time and pay the attention. And you can write directions all you want. Guys, I'm telling you, don't leave your pumpkins in somebody else's hand. It's a bad idea, right? Unless it's another pumpkin grower. Now, if you got another pumpkin grower that's right there close by, hey, by all means, right? Unless he's going to be bad competition for you, which I don't think any real growers would mess over another grower, because most of us want to see each other do well, right, and succeed. But there might be a couple of them out there that's kind of like, he's out of 10. I'm going to kill this pumpkin. I'm going to send a bunch of squash vine borers over there. And that's another thing. SBV, squash vine, or SVB, squash vine borers. Watch out for them. They are a moth. They will lay their eggs on your vines like this. Bloop, 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 bloop. Right? They'll lay them all over it. And then one day you'll go out there and your plant, the leaves are like this, weeping over, like, oh, you know, they're just so sick and they're starting to wilt and everything. Oh, you know. And you'll say, what's wrong with my plant? It was beautiful yesterday. And what has happened is those eggs have hatched that were on your vine. They bore into your vine, right? And then they start eating the guts out of your vine, and they just keep going. And what you'll do is you'll have to go out there and look on your vine, and you'll find like sawdust stuff coming out of a hole in your vine. Sometimes it's even in the stem. They went in on the leaf, right? They went in a hole on the leaf, and then they started burrowing in. So you got to check your leaf nodes, like right in here, right? Like right there at this junction. You'll start checking all up in here, and you'll see a little hole and a bunch of ooze coming out of it, and sawdust looking stuff. That's the poop, okay? They just shovel it in one end and poop it out the other, and it comes out that hole, all right? So then there you are with squash vine borers, and you got to try to figure out how to get rid of them. Now, there's a couple ways you can do it. I hate, personally, having to use stuff like Eagle 20 for powdery mildew, or imidacloprid, you know, which I can't remember the real name for it, but anyhow, it's something that we use on our plants to kill back bugs and, you know, prevent like squash vine borers, right? And it's systemic. It goes into the roots draw it up into the plant, all right? It stays in the plant, stays active in the plant. The bugs come, they bite the plant, you know, land on the plant, you know, and they die. Some of them's some stuff is contact. I don't believe that imidacloprid is contact. I believe you have to eat it. I believe the bug has to inject it. Now you got BT, some other things out there that's really, really good for controlling pests. All right, there's other things that's really good for controlling your disease. All right, and your funguses. We'll get into that during the growing season, or you can go back in my videos of this year and you can see, you know, all the different things that I used, all right, for pests, disease, funguses, whatever. But just trying to give you an overall view of what can take place. Now, powdery mildew. Why do you want to keep your vines, you know, in a good shape and not just let them go crazy, right? One is for growing technique and being able to control everything, being able to get good airflow through there, and being able to draw nutrients in evenly, right? That's what you're looking for. That right there is going to draw in all the nutrients and shove them up the vine to the pumpkin. Now listen, guys, the other thing, you want to keep as much vine behind the pumpkin, all right, as you can possible. It's hard, it's easy for that pumpkin plant to push nutrients up the vine to the pumpkin, all right, from the stump, right? Push it up the plant to the pumpkin. It's hard, if you were, say, back here, for that pumpkin plant to draw nutrients down the vine. That's not how plants work. They push nutrients out. They don't draw them in, right? They draw from the ground up and push them out to the growing tip, right? Which is right here. So this plant right here, he's drawing nutrients from down here at this base, drawing them up, and he's pushing it out to the tip. So if there's a pumpkin here, it's going to be growing and pushing it up out the tip, right? If this was a, let's say a 15-foot plant, okay? Every nodule that I showed you in some of these other videos, like, you know, right there and right there, they have these little roots on them, right? Let me see, right here we go. Yeah, here's some. See all these little white roots and stuff that's in there, okay? Like right there, okay? There's one right there, tip of my finger. All right, so those are going to be, you know, to help you. They're going to be sucking up nutrients and pushing that pumpkin. So if you got it in a good pattern and they're not the vines aren't going over other vines, you're getting equal spread of roots. You're getting equal pull of nutrients and water, and you're getting that good flow up the vine to your plants. Excuse me, to your pumpkin. Now, the other thing is, like I said, you got to keep it dry. So you got a good pattern. You're keeping it dry, right? The air can flow through there easily. You can put a fan on it if you need to, and it's going to blow through there very good. Keeping things dry to where, you know, you're not going to be, you know, just less susceptible to disease and stuff. Now, here's the thing. Powdery mildew. When you live down south especially, powdery mildew is something that just happens. you got humidity, you got powdery mildew, right? The nights and stuff like that are what ends up causing it, okay? So there'll be more talk about that later on. We'll have a video on powdery mildew later on in the year. But for right now, just know that powdery mildew, you have to be aware of that. One way that you fight that is with a good pattern, good vine pattern, and a good airflow through the vine pattern. All right, that way you're not getting that dew falling on the leaves. The other thing is do not water your plant in the evening time. But so many hours before sunset. Like if the sun's setting at 9 o'clock, cut your watering off at 7. Don't water any more after 7, because the water that sits on those leaves, okay, or up underneath and all over the plant and everything, all that water, if it's not getting the time to kind of dry off, it's just sitting there. And trust me, I know that dew falls, okay, but the extra water that's there, okay, if you got fans blowing through your pumpkin patch like you should have to keep everything dry, okay, if you got fans, in there, and you water, well, and add extra water, and then the dew falls, well, that's just that much more for it to try to keep up and stuff, and you'll notice they'll start on the underneath of the leaves. Foliar feeding. I'm just trying to cover everything I can when it comes to mine. So foliar feeding, when you foliar feed, you got like 20% of the stigmatas, I think is what it's called, on the top of the leaf, all right? 80% of your stigmatas are on the bottom side of the leaf, okay? So when you go to spray, you'll see a lot of us now have backpack sprayers, gas-powered backpack sprayers, and you come out there like a fogger, but last year I didn't have one, so I had to use a hand pump sprayer, and I would come and I would spray underneath the leaves and on the top. Now, you can leave it on the top, and you can wash it off, the next morning or whatever, or however long you decide you want to leave it set on your leaf. Okay, you come, you overhead water, washes it off of the leaf, right, and down into your soil. Then your roots uptake whatever it washed off the leaf, right, and then sucks it up. You still got all of it underneath on the bottom of the leaf, right? So make sure when you foliar feed, you apply it to the bottom of your leaf, all right, and then and make sure you get it. It's not supporting on the top. It's not as important on the top as it is underneath. That's where you get the most reaction to foliar feeding, is underneath the leaf there. So let me see here. Cover your stumps. You want to cover the stumps, all right? If you're growing outside especially, cover those stumps. Once you get after a certain point, the stump, while it's still important and it's still doing some things, it does slow down. And the rest of the plant is really doing the work. The stump kind of slows down, not doing much. What will end up happening if you don't cover that stump, if it starts getting absurd amount of water pushed to it, okay, from overhead watering or rain or whatever, or maybe it's in a low spot, okay, you want to make sure you get it up high. Always plant your pumpkins, I think, in a hill, okay, even though you're transplant them in a hill. That way when everything settles, you still got it up and elevated. But like I said, when you get a lot of water through overhead watering, or you're getting a lot of it through rain, if that stump is not covered, then it's going to be susceptible to getting what they call a foaming stump. Now, all you got to do is build something real small. You can even go buy one of those little plastic tables, little plastic tables that you would set like outside on your porch or whatever. The little ones, they're like this size right here, right? They're just tiny. You can get that, or you can build something, just 4 legs is all you need with a top, just to cover that stump area. You want that stump area covered and dry. Cover your pumpkins. Make sure that you cover your pumpkins. Make sure you go to flea markets, thrift stores, Salvation Army, anywhere that you can find. Here's what you need when you go to those places. When you go to flea markets and yard sales and thrift stores and Salvation Army and stuff, here's a few things. Water hose. Buy as much water hose as possible, okay? Old sprinkler systems, old watering systems, buy as much of that as possible. Old plastic tables and chairs, like I was just telling you. Buy as many of them as possible, okay? Extension cords and fans. I cannot stress to you enough how important it is to have extension cords and fans. They are a lifesaver. You got to have them, okay? And what you do, like say I got a problem outside, and I got one of them little tables, right? Like over there, I got a little table, and I can take that and set set me a fan up underneath there, one of my inline fans, right? Inline fans are very good too. Now you probably won't find them at yard sales or anything like that. You probably have to go to the store and buy your inline fans, but trust me, it's a lifesaver. Much better than a box fan. Okay, for certain applications, like say you got a bad place on your stem. I had 2 stems this year that were giving me trouble. Had I had bought the inline fans early enough, I could have saved probably my stems a whole lot faster, and probably wouldn't have lost my 950 cook. Probably would have been just fine had I had an inline fan instead of a big box fan. Big box fan, it's just dragging everything. It's going to drag the water, it's going to drag the dew, it's going to drag everything, and it's just going to pound wherever you're putting that fan to, right? And while it might not be so bad doing it on the plant, inside the plant, it'll probably keep the plant semi-dry. Well, when you focus it in on one area like the stem, you're going to get, infections, bacteria, all kinds of problems, right? Well, if you got an inline fan, you take your inline fan and you get dryer vent line, like what you use for your dryer vent, right? And usually it's 4-inch, you can go to 6-inch, and you just put it right where you want it. You got a boo-boo right here, well, you just aim that right there, okay? And that fan is hooked up to that dryer vent line, right? And you can just directional do whatever. Well, you got that table. The inline fans can't get wet like these other fans, right? So you put it up underneath the table to give it cover, okay, or a chair or whatever you got. You get cover for your inline fan, and then you get direction with your hose. So it's a very, very good system. I'll show you more about those later this year as well. Just like again, trying to fire hose you with as much information as possible. Find somebody in your area that's growing giants. Okay, talk to them, pick their brain, ask them questions, join the groups, join Growing Giants, or not Growing Giants, Garden of Giants. There we go. Join Garden of Giants on Facebook. Join Backyard Giant Pumpkin Growers. Join all the club sites that's out there. Anything that's got giant pumpkin related. Atlantic Deal, or Deal's Atlantic Giant, or no, sorry. Atlantic Giant Pumpkins Buy, Sell, Trade. Okay, go there. You can find all kinds of seeds there at Atlantic Giant Buy, Sell, Trade. Go to these places and look at everything that's growing. Okay, they're not just growing giant pumpkins. They're, we're growing giant sunflower. It's everything, right? But since we're going to stay on track with the pumpkins today, go there and say, hey, I'm from so-and-so, Mountain State Giant Growers. Go there. They're for, the area of West Virginia, Virginia, North Carolina, right? Of course, there's other people in the group, so, you can go there and name, somebody might know where, if you live in Chicago or something, somebody might know somebody outskirts of Chicago or somewhere around there that's growing giant pumpkins. Anyhow, go there, communicate with the people, talk to them, tell them where you're from, tell them what you're doing, and somebody will point you in the right direction of a giant pumpkin grower located near you. Like me, I just started this past year in 2021, didn't know anybody, didn't know nothing. I started asking questions and this, that, and the other. And the next thing I know, I got a giant pumpkin grower an hour away from me in Lewisburg, Doc Rodabaugh. And man, let me tell you, that guy was the bomb diggity on helping me, right? I mean, he helped me load all my pumpkins this year. He helped me, showed me the ropes. He helped me in so many ways, it's unimaginable, right? Like, he literally, he's like, hey, you need anything, you get a hold of me. Well, I'm thinking, yeah, right? But no, it was true. These guys want to help you grow, okay? They want to see you grow. They want to see you succeed. So get out there and talk to them, right? Join these places on Facebook and stuff and other giant pumpkin grower YouTube channels and become a part of the community, right? And stuff. I mean, it's a great community. You wouldn't think it, but it's a wonderful community. So talk to them. They'll mentor you. They'll show you the ropes and stuff. And then as you get to growing and stuff, and as you have learning and everything, you'll meet more and more growers, right? And you'll find other people to help you and mentor you, and everybody's got a different way to do it. But if you take a collaboration of everything and put it together, you've got the perfect patch, right? Because none of us are the perfect grower. But if I take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this, and I add it to the mix, then when I dial it in, I should be golden, because I'm taking all these ideas, drawing them into one patch and learning so much. And even the best of growers, these guys grow 2,000 plus pounds, they're still learning, right? So they're going to tell you some things they don't know, okay? They just don't know. They don't have the answer for it. And some things none of us know, right? But it's good to question, it's good to ask, and it's good to find out the information. Next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you got a way to lift these pumpkins, right? So either have somebody that has a forklift and something, right, that you can lift on, and be able to talk to them about helping you, or find somebody that's got a tripod that can lift them and put them in the back of your truck, like my buddy, or buy the stuff. Jeff Tile, I think is how you really pronounce his name. But that's another guy that's got a YouTube channel, Growing Giants with Jeff, or Jeff's Giant Growing Journal, or something of that nature. I can't remember. Just look it up. You'll find it. Growing Giants with Jeff, or Giant Growing with Jeff, something of that. You'll find it on there. Jeff Tile is his name. Jeff Tile. He makes a lot of the stuff that we need, like the knuckle for the tripods and stuff like that. So you can reach out to those people, get a lot of help, get a lot of advice, and buy the knuckles and stuff like that off of him, and be able to lift your own pumpkin. Real quick, back to the pumpkin growing. When you get a pumpkin, you're going to want to put it on one or two things. You're either going to put it on mill fabric, which is very hard to get a hold of. I'm still trying to get a hold of some, and I ain't been able to find any. And the ones that I have found are all the way out in California, and they're not going to ship them here. Even though I'd be more than willing to pay the shipping, I can't get them shipped. So I'm going to have to find mill fabric some other way. Hopefully I do. If I do not find any mill fabric between now and growing season, mill fabric comes from the paper industry, right? The paper mill industry. So see if you can find mill fabric. That's the number one thing that you want to grow your pumpkin on. If you can't find that, the next thing you want to do is you want to go to your local store that sells that insulation, right? The foam insulation, the styrofoam insulation, right? This past year I bought I bought 1/2 inch, I think it was. And that was not enough. So if that wasn't enough, then obviously I needed more. So I'm thinking probably 1 to 1 1/4 inch thick foam, right? Because once that 1,000-pound pumpkin gets on there, it just collapses it. If you use the styrofoam board to grow on, make sure that you use the stiff stuff, the really, really thick, stiff stuff. Like even the 1/2 inch stuff feels really thick, right? Not the stuff that you can see, the little styrofoam bubbles, like the little individual pieces of styrofoam. Don't use that, because that's what I used this past year trying to be cheap, and it was a bad thing, right? Don't use that. Use the good thick stuff that, I'll show you some. I got a little bit outside from the neighbor. The neighbor gave me some thin pink stuff, but it's the right type. Just needed to be thicker. Get that type. Cut it. It's 4 foot. It's going to be 4 foot wide, but probably cut it about 5 foot long, 6 foot long, somewhere around in there. And then you may have, depending on the width of the size of the pumpkin, you may have to add some to either side of it, whatever side's short. Okay. If it gets bigger, you'll just have to add more of it to it, and it'll just grow onto it. It'll just lap itself onto there. But you need it. You absolutely need it. Now, once you put it down, before you put it down, 2 things you're going to need. You're going to need sand to put on top of it, so when the pumpkin sets on there, the sand is like little marbles, and it allows it to slide across the surface of the foam. Okay, the foam board. The second thing you want to do is you want to make sure you drill plenty of holes in the foam board to allow moisture to go through it. You don't want moisture setting right up against the pumpkin. That's bad. You got moisture setting against that pumpkin, your pumpkin will rot. It will rot. Trust me. As short as the day is long, that pumpkin will go down. So make sure that you put plenty of holes in that foam board. You don't have to do it on the mill fabric, because the mill fabric lets water go through it, right? But you do need sand for mill fabric too. And if you get 2 pieces of mill fabric, you can put 1 piece of mill fabric down, put a layer of sand on that one, lay your second piece of mill fabric on top of that, another layer of sand, and then when your pumpkin sets on top of those, you can literally pull the one that's on top and the pumpkin, and it'll slide with you, because you are going to have to adjust the pumpkin. You're going to have to pull that pumpkin forward to get that vine because it will kink up. The pumpkins end up getting so big. Like if here's a pumpkin, it'll start bending that, and eventually it'll kink that vine plumb off, or break it, or rip off of the. It'll rip the vine off the stem. One of the three things are going to happen. You got to pull that pumpkin forward. You got to pull that pumpkin, to me, stretch that kink out. All right. You're going to need pool noodles. Plenty of pool noodles. Make sure you get pool noodles. As soon as you find pool noodles anywhere, buy them. Dollar stores, wherever. If you find pool noodles, get them. The better ones, the bigger and the better are what you want. You want them the thicker ones, the more sturdy ones, because you're going to be propping your vines up. If you got to take that vine up and it keeps growing and growing and growing, you got to prop it up with a pool noodle, right? Because your pumpkin is not going to continue to stay low to the ground. As that pumpkin grows, so does the stem, so does the vine, pulls it up, right? So you need supports, because if you don't have supports, the weight of the vine trying to go back down because of gravity to the ground, you got to have supports there for it. And pool noodles work really good. Oh, man. Trying to think. What else? Man, this video is almost an hour long, and I ain't even put the other video into it yet. There's so much that goes in with this. I mean, it's really hard to cram it in a very short amount of time. That is pretty much your basics of growing. Fertilizer types, you're going to hear a ton of it, right? I know what I'm going to use based on last year and how I'm going to use it. I will have to buy some, but I'm hoping I don't have to buy much, because I've got 2 sponsors that should be helping me every step of the way. So anyhow, fertilizers, it's not cheap. It's not cheap at all. I spent roughly $1,000 last year on fertilizer on my pumpkin patch, and probably could have went up to $1,500 or more. I was being conservative with it. I wasn't fertilizing as often as I wanted to, or the amounts that I wanted to, because eventually it got to be so much that I couldn't afford to feed it any more than that, right? And I never found a place where my plants said, "Oh no, I can't take no more." So if you can imagine that, I was going through 40 and 50 pounds of bags of calcium nitrate in a month. Okay. I mean, it would just run through the whole thing on my patch. And I never found a place where my pumpkin says, "Yeah, that's enough." Never, not once. Not the plant, not the pumpkin, nothing. It is fun, but it is difficult. There's so much to it. But go out and enjoy yourself. Again, only grow as much as you think you can handle. Don't overload yourself, because if you overload yourself, you're not going to have any fun. It's going to be miserable, and you're going to quit and give up. We don't want to see anybody quitting. We don't want to see anybody giving up. So do your best to make sure that you only grow what you think you can handle. Make sure you go, and like I said, early prep for me would be buying extension cords, fans, heating cables. If you plan to put out early, I'd put heating cables out. You need to go to the GPC, the Giant Pumpkin Commonwealth, Giant Pumpkin Commonwealth. Go there and check out their dates for the areas that you're in, and see what times your weigh-offs are this fall. They'll be posted by May, I believe is what it is. So by May, you'll know what you should be shooting for. Also in those groups, you'll probably get a better idea of it even before May. So kind of see what are you shooting for. Are you shooting for a state fair in August, or are you shooting for September, October time frame to go to a weigh off? If that's the case, it's good. Count 100 to 110 days back. So if your weigh off is September the 8th, count 110 days to 100 days back. These pumpkins can grow for 100 to 110 days. A lot of these guys are, by day 90, I think, they're pretty much, the pumpkin plant, the plant and the pumpkin itself are pretty much tapped out a lot of times by day 85, 90. By 100, they've really just kind of petered out to maybe 1 or 2 pounds a day, if that. There's probably no measurable growth, right? Not always, if you get no measurable growth, is the pumpkin not growing anymore. Sometimes, like my 950 Cook, I knew it was growing. I seen the cracks. It was no measurable growth, okay? But I could see the cracking, okay? I always had daily cracks in the pumpkin, new ones, and it was leaking and oozing. So just because it's not growing measurable on the outside, don't mean it's not growing internally, and that cavity, the seed cavity inside, shrinking, right? So that's a good thing too. You know, just because a pumpkin, here's the thing, just because a pumpkin measures big, don't mean that it weighs that much, right? And vice versa, just because it measures small, don't mean it don't weigh much, okay? Because I measured it at 849. I weighed 950, and that was after the whole bottom had rotted out of it. That was after I took all the seeds out of it. That was after it sat outside for like 5 or 6 days in the heat and everything, getting dehydrated, and just, you know, everything just dying on the pumpkin, all the moisture being sucked out of it. All right, and then I took a chainsaw and cut it up into chunks to where I could manage to set them on a scale and weigh them. So after I've done all that, and it still weighed 950 pounds, which is over 101 pound, right? It was 101 pound over what it measured. Well, that just tells me that I was probably closer to, you know, probably 1,000+ pound pumpkin, you know. So anyhow, it's fun, it's enjoyable. I'll try to do more of these videos per giant, and kind of run through the meal with you on everything. Basically, if you're going to plant any kind of giant cucurbit, like your butternut squash, or your giant pumpkin, or even your bushel gourd, similar growing techniques for all of those, right? So you just want to make sure you pinch off all the female flowers. All right, so once you start getting once you have one pumpkin set, make sure you pinch off all the rest of the females. You only want one pumpkin growing on your plant, or one bushel gourd, or one butternut, okay? Now, they will try to hide, but it's harder to hide a giant pumpkin than it is a giant butternut or something. Those hide really well, and so do giant bushel gourds. Bushel gourds just go crazy, but we'll go over that another day. Pick all your male flowers off. If you're using any kind of pesticides, get in there and make sure you take all your male and female flowers off for sure, because we don't want to kill any bees. We don't want to hurt any of the bees. So make sure you get in there and pull all those flowers off before you use any pesticides and kill any bees. Sometimes it just happens, you know, they just die. Sometimes they die because bees only have a very, like a 2-month life, right? Bees only live for like 2 months or something. So sometimes they're just in there and they just die. So, I mean, it's maybe not be your fault. So I think I've covered up as much as I can think of tonight. I hope this helps you guys become better growers. I hope it helps you want to grow giants. I hope it encourages you, in case you didn't do good last year. I hope it encourages you to grow a big one this year, right? So we're going to get off of here. We're going to put this video together for you. I know it's going to be a little lengthy, but yeah. So guys, we appreciate you watching. We'll see you tomorrow right here in the Hollers and Hills, West Virginia.